Hello everyone, in this video I will crash this Mercedes 190E and do some kind of crash test. I made this car entirely from plasticine, from this block of very hard NSP plasticine. For Providence, the crash test created just such an acceleration lane, along which the Cybertruck will accelerate on the control panel, where at the end of the road you will crash into a Mercedes. Its body is also made of plasticine and mounted on this chassis. To prevent the Cybertruck from hitting the car and squeezing it, it was tied with threads to the leg of a chair. Thus, limiting its acceleration, it will crash into the Mercedes and stop abruptly. I installed rubber bands like these in the back so that the Mercedes would not fly back too much in a collision. This way, he will simply be pushed away and will not receive additional damage from behind. The first collision, the bumper took everything upon itself. It was dented quite strongly and the damage did not go much further. The hood and left headlight were slightly bent. The collision site is clearly visible from above. Also, the windshield has become slightly detached from its fastenings, and I think it will soon fly off completely. If you open the hood and remove it, you can get a better look at the location of the collision and how much damage was done to the engine. Still, I decided to remove the rubber bands. The car springs back too much. There are still soft lips behind, so they will soften the blow. This time the damage was much more serious. The collision was right in the center. The bumper and hood were bent, and many paint cracks were noticeably formed due to the deformation of the plasticine. Also, the torpedo went a little into the cabin due to the fact that the hood was not bent more, and squeezed the torpedo into the cabin. Apparently, I didn't install it firmly enough. You can still sit there, but it's obviously not as spacious as it was. The radiator was only slightly pinched under the hood, and the engine was without any noticeable damage. The rear spoiler broke. It broke off in the place where I connected it when I was sculpting it. A side collision into the driver's door, so to speak, an imitation with a pole. The damage is serious. The door was bent down to the seat, which even moved a little. The roof remained intact since the ram on the Cybertruck is not so high. From below, you can see how badly everything was bent here. There was even such a bulge on the threshold. From the rear, the lateral damage is very noticeable. I think it turned out quite well and realistically. The central pillar also moved a little deeper into the cabin. The rear part was very badly damaged since there are no reinforcements there. It was bent, and the trunk immediately flew off. It itself is without damage, intact except for the spoiler. You can even install it back without any problems. The car has already begun to fall apart. The engine is all wobbly. Some small parts are falling. It turned out funny. Look, the tire itself remained in place, but the disc was torn off, and the rear wheel had already completely flown off. This collision was already direct to the central pillar. The damage here is much greater. Now I want to completely crush the car and watch it in slow motion. Mercedes was placed at the pole, so it would be squeezed very tightly. The tin just crushed it. It looked very cool. It crushed it so much that it was already holding everything together. Everything was falling off. Well, what happened to the front part here? You can be stunned. The engine and radiator have just been torn out. What is this? Some kind of strip with headlights. And the front door is already cracked in half. The bottom has peeled off from the body itself. Parts have come apart at the seams. You can see orange NSP plasticine. It was certainly very entertaining. I hope you enjoyed it too. And the next car I crash will be a new Niva Travel. I plan to drive it against a pole. So, as not to miss this video, subscribe to the channel and press likes for such destructive content. Now that this Mercedes is completely broken, it goes to be stored on a shelf of broken cars made of plasticine. And that's all I have for you. Thank you all for watching. Bye everyone.